Oh, good afternoon. Hope you all are doing well. I'm Billy. This is Jammer 360. Today we are in McMinnville, Oregon at the Evergreen Air Museum. Actually, what it's called is Evergreen Aviation and Space Museum. We're going to look around a lot of stuff. This is the place that has the famous Spuce Goose that was built by Howard Hughes for World War II. I'll tell you more stories about it once we get going. So here is the Spuce Goose, built by Howard Hughes. It was only flown one time. It cost $25 million to make. The government spent $18 million of it, and Howard Hughes used $7 million of his own dollars. It was designed to carry, believe it or not, 750 people, or the weight of 2 Sherman tanks. But he only flew that one time in 1947, landed it, and that was the end of it. As you can tell by the bottom here, it is it's a seaplane, so it does land in water. And we're gonna go inside so you can get a look at what it looks like inside. As you can see there, 4 engines on each side, so it's got 8 motors. All right, we're gonna go inside here. They've got a little bit of a museum about the plane inside. You can see we're right up underneath the motors and the wing. So this is what the Spuce Goose looks like inside. It's like set up for cargo right here. As you can see, you look down here, it is multi-leveled. Kind of like 747s are, with the upper deck and lower deck. And this is a staircase up to the cockpit. So if you see at the end of the wing there, these big floats, I just learned that they were filled with beach balls. So these things here are what made the floats floatable. So they do also have replicas in here, like this plane right here. This is the replica of the Wright brothers' first plane. And then over here is the replica of the Spirit of St. Louis, you know, that Lindbergh flew across the Atlantic Ocean. And you can see it's really dwarfed underneath the wing of the Spuce Goose. So this here is a Sopwith Camel World War I fighter jet. If you notice, the guns right up here on the top actually fire, and they're timed, so as this propeller spins by, the bullets actually come through the spinning propeller without hitting it. And here we are on the other side of the Spuce Goose. You can see that big wing and the big front of the plane. So here we are with some World War II planes, you know, Messerschmitt. These are all like German planes, and that's the float for the Spuce Goose. It's nearly as big as the World War II plane.
That's another model.
You really can't appreciate how big this plane really is unless you're actually here up underneath it. They say that the tail wing of this thing is the length of the regular World War II bombers. The B-29 is as long as the tail section of the Spuce Goose. So here is the first German fighter jet during World War II, the Messerschmitt 262. If you watch the Red Tails movie, you'll see how the American pilots actually beat this plane flying the P-51 Mustangs. This plane was a lot faster than the Mustangs, but they learned if they flew high above and dove down on them, they could defeat them. So this plane here is the Yellow Peril. This is what they taught all the Naval and Marine Corps aviators in World War II and just prior to World War II. This is what they taught them to fly in. All right, so here's one last look. This is the very back tail section of the Spuce Goose. And again, from tip to tip is the same length as a B-29. Now over here is a PBY seaplane, which was considered a large airplane in during World War II, and it is sitting here in the shadow of the tail section of the Spuce Goose. So here's my grandson Titan in the Alley Cat, a little small airplane. Wave at us again, Titan. So this here's the gift shop, and you know me and magnets, so I got myself a Spuce Goose magnet. And here comes Titan flying by. So this is the Titan II rocket, and all the way down there is my son waving. And it's funny because my grandson's getting ready to run down there, and his name is Titan. Wave, Titan. All right, so now we are in another building here at the museum. This building is dedicated to space. So it starts on the other side with the Mercury astronauts, then goes to Gemini, and then Apollo, and so forth and so on. So yeah, over there's the original 7 of the Mercury program. And the big Titan rockets were used for Gemini and Apollo.
This is the Titan one.
So all the way to Wind, and there's the Apollo, and this is a mock-up of the Titan 1 rocket.
This also says right here, Titan 1.
Yep, so Titan's pointing at the Titan.
Titan.
And what we got here is a scorched up Apollo capsule after it came back to Earth, went through the atmosphere, and it's being pulled out of the water by the big helicopter. And then we got the Moonwalker, and this is actually the module that lands on the moon. They would call the Eagle. When they said the Eagle has landed, this is what they were talking about. And of course, the moon buggy, the little dune buggy they had. It only went like 6 miles an hour. All right, so next to the Spuce Goose, this would be the next of the highlights of this museum. This is an SR-71 Blackbird. plane that was built to go 2,000 miles an hour. They have the big massive engine of it out so you can actually see it. This thing though, when it was flying, it had a radar signature smaller than the actual size of a person, so it was hard to see. Plus it flew so damn high. It flew like at 75,000 feet.
If you want to see what it looks, how many buttons you have to press in a rocket ship, here it is. That's how many you have to press in outer space.
Yeah, and that's the cockpit of it. So here's a model of it, so you can get the whole thing in one picture. And then this is the actual real plane.
There's a jet behind you.
Now right up here, hanging from the ceiling, this is the X-15. It was made to go into outer space like an airplane, and had a lot of bad luck with this thing. They made several of them, and most of them crashed when the pilots lost control of them trying to come back from the edges of space. I actually built this model a couple of times. And then here, this is every Marine, every grunt, anybody that's been in combat's favorite plane to come to their rescue. This is the A-10 Thunderbolt, better known as the Warthog. It was a big deal in Desert Storm. We used to kill all the tanks of Saddam's army. When I was in Afghanistan, it was our close air support. Whenever we needed help, this plane would come out of nowhere. This big Gatling gun on the front here was awesome to see. Man, you could take out some stuff with it. It was a sad day when they took this plane out of active service. So in between the museum over here that has the Spuce Goose, and over here where the space stuff is, they've got a theater.
That's where we want to test it.
They play 3 or 4 different movies on a loop throughout the day. A couple of them are 3D. You actually get a ticket that allows you to go into see one of the movies for free, and then you can pay to see others. So here's a little oddity. This tree here was grown from seeds that came from a fir tree at the Capitol in Salem, Oregon, and went up into space, went around the moon 34 times, and then came back to Earth, and then they grew this tree with it. And they have a playground here for kids. Looks like a helicopter, and this one here looks like a spaceship, and Titan's up there up in the spaceship. So out front of each of the buildings, they have static displays of different airplanes. Like this one here is one of the VIP planes that the government would use. And a couple of fighter jets, real old. And all the way out near the road, there's a 747. Now the building, you know, if you see it back there, we'll walk closer to it, but there's a 747 mounted up on top of another building, and that building happens to be the indoor water park. All right, so we're out here in front. We've got the Tomcat from like Top Gear and its rival, the MiG-29. I don't know if you can see it through the window there, but there's the front of the Spuce Goose. All right, so this is the water park. It's at the far end of the complex. And up there on top is a 747, and it has the slides actually coming out of the plane. So I guess you take an elevator up and you can take the slides down. There's also kinds of other slides and stuff in here. It's a separate price from the rest of the museum. So the rest of the museum over here, it's like $27 per person. If you're over 64, you get a couple dollar break. And if you're under the age of 16, you get a couple dollar break. So I would say after going through it, that the price I think is pretty much worth it. You can spend a whole day here and more just by going in the theaters, and they have a kids rides in there. They got a kids interactive area where you can do little science projects upstairs. And back over here, looks like they actually have a wedding going on. There's a chapel. There's also like a little hotel type thing. and a big area for picnicking, and looks like, I'm not quite sure what it is out there, but there's an archway to get back there, and it's just a big open ground. I think it's for camping. Well, that's pretty much the end of the museum, so we'll just call it a day there, and hope y'all are doing well, and I look forward to seeing y'all next trip.